All right. It looks like we are going live. Look at that. I love it. All right. Welcome, everybody. It is the weekly Spinner Rack. It's time to begin the show. Oh. Is that for me? Thank you. Let's go. Let's go. Jim, nice to see you here. Let's give some shout outs to some people that seem to be here. Let me see if we've got the live chat showing up here. Looks like we do. Hi to Sam and Bruce and Big Gay Dave and A-Man and Daryl Grant and Jeff Santos and Joe Dent. Wonderful. I like this. Let me just double check that everything is looking correct on the live stream. I think it is. No, it is not, isn't it? Okay, hold on. It's Chris from Comic Tropes, that's right. I just need to figure out why it wouldn't be showing the live chat right now, because I should have a box, like my OBS software that I run this on says that I've got that, but I don't see it. So that's strange. Let's, I'll just add a new one. Okay, that's fine. Oh, I know how to do it. Okay, hold on. Then I'll just do that. No, and then, oh. Firefox. There we go. Did that do it? Did that do it? Hello, Gene. Sorry, this one's taken me a minute, folks. I just want to make sure that I'm live streaming correctly. Rainy days and Mondays get me down, but your live stream doesn't. Thank you, sister. That's nice. Good. Yep. Now, okay, good. Now I'm showing the live chat for everybody, right? Yep. Yep, I had to, exactly right. Big Gay Dave got it. I had to change the source back and forth. I was trying to do something earlier, like figuring out a way to, with OBS, highlight your chats so that I'm not always showing everything. I haven't figured out that yet, but I've changed it so that you have to be a subscriber to comment. I think almost everybody is that watches the show anyway, and that's at least one way to maybe keep some of the chats out. Uros asks, thoughts on Hugo Pratt and his creation Corto Maltese? Is he as big in the US as he is in Europe? Probably not as big, but I personally love Hugo Pratt's work. I think it's incredible. And it definitely influenced a lot of artists here. Corto Maltese is the name of a fictional country in DC Comics, and that's because, so many creators were influenced by Hugo Pratt. I've got a bunch of his work, and I definitely plan on talking about it at some point. So, yeah. I've got, some comics. It wasn't, a huge week this week, but I've got some interesting stuff to talk about, and then I'm going to get into some art, and there's definitely a lot of big news, too. There's a lot of big news. So, this show, I'm going to talk about comics, I'm going to talk about the news of the week, and I'm going to talk with all of you. So that'll be fun. And then it'll be cool. Next week, it'll be the day after the San Diego Comic-Con, so I'm sure we'll have a lot of news next week to digest. Next week is likely to be a huge week for the show with news. Let's just get started here. So, I think I've made it clear by drawing him and the fact that I've got little Lego guys of the Mandalorian and stuff. I like the Mandalorian quite a bit. It's some of my favorite Star Wars in the last several years. I like it a lot. Marvel has the license, of course, for Star Wars comics, and they've done a Mandalorian comic. And it's cool. This is written by... hold on. Let me see his first name. I know his last name, but I wanted to see his first name. Written by a guy named Rodney Barnes, illustrated by George Jeanty, and I know I liked for his work on Buffy the Vampire Slayer, back when Joss Whedon was guiding that comic. I thought that Jeanty did a really good job sort of doing a mix of capturing likenesses but still having some energetic stuff. So now they've got a Mandalorian comic. Just to be clear, this is not news stories. This is an adaptation of the show. But that's okay. I mean, it's been a couple years since this first season, so with how much has changed for the character, it's kind of cool to go back and like refresh my memory on the basics. Look, this is probably going to appeal to people that already like it for the most part. But if you've never read any Star Wars, you can jump into this without knowing anything, and it's a good jumping on point, okay? Artwork is clean and clear. It doesn't feel rushed, but it feels very accurate to the story. Cool spaceships, cool monsters and aliens, bounty hunters. It's great. It's really, really good. It's interesting, to go back and see some of these characters before they evolved to what they are now, which I'm sure you could get a similar experience rewatching the show. But I find the decisions an artist makes to be very compelling, You could blast through this without thinking about it too much. You could just sort of enjoy the story, and that's fine. But then I go back and I'm like, Jeanty had only a few panels to sort of like relay the Mandalorian here, going through a crowded market, going into like, a secret passageway, coming down some steps and meeting like other Mandalorians. And I think it's communicated pretty effectively. Limited space to tell that much story, but a good job with some depth here. Like, in the foreground, we've got a weird alien getting cooked. That sort of helps establish the tone. Making this panel, so vertical helps like a little bit with the depth of him going downwards, and it helps guide the eye to like, this page. So there's a lot of clever little decisions made here to help move things forward. Let's see. Jim speaks up and says that Rodney Barnes is great. He writes Philadelphia at Image. I see that on the stands, and I've heard from a couple people in this chat that they like Philadelphia. That is not one that I've checked out, but I did like this adaptation. So, everything feels very accurate and honest. So, yeah, I'll have to check out some of the other stuff that Rodney Barnes has done. That would be nice. Anyway, I do recommend it. I do definitely recommend it. Let's move forward. This is Marvel's new big event, and I almost felt obligated to take a look at it because I do a show like this, right? So you have to sort of look at some of the events if you're doing a show about comics, just so that you're a little plugged in. And this is sort of the prelude to the next event, which is Avengers versus X-Men versus Eternals. Yeah, this does smack of Marvel pushing the Eternals pretty strong, which reminds me of when they were pushing the Inhumans so strong. They were getting ready to they were going to make an Inhumans movie at one point. They didn't have the rights to make X-Men movies, so X-Men sort of like, there were no new characters being developed for a while. There was no new Fantastic Four characters and stuff like that. This is definitely like a little bit of that, because the Eternals are a little bit interesting, and they've actually had some good stories aside from Jack Kirby's. The Neil Gaiman run was good, and then like I've heard really good things about like, the most recent Eternals run. But they're pretty weird. They're not superheroes. They're as plugged in. They're more like gods. They're a secret society. They're very similar to Inhumans in that way. It's a little tricky to make it so relatable. This issue sets the status quo. It lets us know, hey, the Avengers are the superheroes, cool. The X-Men can now beat death itself, okay? They've got their own mutant island of Krakoa. Pretty much every mutant lives together. They can use their powers, and they can resurrect each other when they die. They've beat death itself. That prompts this. So Druig has always been sort of the most crafty and not quite evil, but sometimes a little bit of the Eternals. And this resets the status quo of where the Eternals are, which is good, because I didn't really know. Apparently, they've basically beaten all the Deviants. That was their mission: defeat the Deviants. They're the Eternals. They fight the Deviants. I guess they've beaten them. So now Druig is looking deeper, and he's like, well, is there anybody else that's been affected by, deviants? And they sort of create the idea that it was deviant DNA that maybe caused mutants. And so now their plan, or Druig's plan specifically, is to wipe out all mutants. This sets that up. It's a little weird, because you'd think that the rest of the Eternals would be aware enough to shut that down. They've kidnapped Mr. Sinister to help them with their plans. We'll see where it goes, folks. I'll be honest. The art and the dialogue is fine. I'm not super excited about this as an event. I feel like it's being, it's not like being forced on anyone. You can just buy it or not, but it doesn't feel tremendously organic. If you're going to use the Eternals, this story is probably about the best way you could do it. If you're going to put the Eternals up against the X-Men. Okay, you have their actual ideology conflict. And I'm fine with that. We'll see if it leads to some fun fights. But I guess why I'm not super stoked on this is ever since Civil War, which is almost 15 years ago or something now, there's just been, for my money, too many events based on good guys versus good guys. And I love to see, Thor versus Hulk to see who's stronger, that kind of a thing. But I don't mind the trope of an initial misunderstanding followed by the good guys teaming up to defeat the bad guy. That's what I like. I don't love seeing good guys versus bad guys, and one of them is going to by virtue of being an actual story where they're at opposite ends, one of them is going to be wrong, philosophically. That's just how it works. So 16 years ago now? Wow, I didn't realize it's been that long. Thank you, Andrew. Look, your mileage may vary depending on how much you're into either the X-Men or the Eternals. For me, I'm not stoked about it. Whatever. Here's one, though, that I wasn't expecting to like so much, and I really, really dig it. Jason Aaron's run on Punisher with two different artists, Saiz and Azaceta. Azaceta draws these flashbacks where we sort of get to know Frank Castle when he was a kid and a teenager, sort of understand a little bit more of where the Punisher comes from. And then the modern stuff is by Jesus Saiz. It's got sort of an almost painterly look. I think what is being done are some possibly some ink washes or some gouache. I'm not 100% sure of the techniques, but it has an interesting depth to it. Anyway, the short version is that the Hand has convinced the Punisher to lead them, and he's willing to do it for two reasons. One, he can use their resources to hunt down terrorists, and two, they've resurrected his dead wife. Okay? I believe that he could be wooed by that. But they're pushing it. They're constantly getting him to they want him to be this bloodthirsty monster, and they're pushing him beyond what he's okay with. And he's butting his heads up against Ares, the god of war. And Ares is the Punisher has basically always been the perfect warrior. So to hell with you, the Hand, for trying to corrupt him. I like it. I like it more than I thought I would. In this issue, he goes up against Lord Deathstrike and Lady Bullseye. That's kind of fun. That's a nice little Neil Adams tribute that they have in the middle, by the way. Keep in mind it takes comics a couple months usually to come out versus when something has happened. But they've got a nice tribute to Sienkiewicz in this issue. Anyway, it's cool. The Punisher is starting to gain powers because he is doing the Hand's will, and that feeds their demonic god, the Beast. It's going some really cool places. And you just know that everything is building to a point where the Punisher won't go past a certain limit, and you know that he's just going to demolish the Hand. He's a kettle that's boiling, and he's about to whistle. It's just everything is simmering. The flashbacks sort of show that simmering rage and how he would let it out even when he was younger, and what directed him in different ways. It's pretty fascinating, honestly. It's a more intimate portrait of the Punisher's mind than most Punisher stories give us, but I don't think it conflicts with anything that we've seen before. I really don't. I feel like it works. I feel like it works really, really well. So I wouldn't have expected to like this so much, but I sincerely do. I think that this is a cool take on the Punisher. This one would be my pick of the week. Clementine, Book 1, by Tillie Walden. This is set in the world of The Walking Dead. It's by Skybound Comet. So that's like Skybound's imprint designed at young adult readers. But I like The Walking Dead a lot. You know, I'm sort of pals with Kirkman, and I wanted to see what this was. I loved it. First of all, look at how thick this book is. You know, this is a big story. And it's intense. The gist of it is Clementine was originally in these Telltale games. One's like, it was almost like a choose your own adventure type of video game where you would choose branching paths based on dialogue and moral choices and stuff like that. She's now about maybe 17 or so. She was like around 8 when the games started. She's on her own, and she comes across some really interesting people in this. First, she comes across some Amish people that actually have a pretty secure town, and it's not like life has changed that much for them. You know, they still run their community fairly similar. Not as easy to get supplies, so that's different. But it's interesting. You know, Clementine starts this story very isolated intentionally. She does not want to get close to anyone. But one of the young men about her age from the Amish town named Amos is going on Rumspringa, which is a real thing where they go off on their own to explore the world for like a year or so. And anyway, like, even though he's the most optimistic, pleasant, kind person you'd ever meet. And she's like, no, you know, the world is too dangerous, you know. But whatever, they end up sort of getting closer and helping each other. And his goal is to go north, just like Clementine's, just to explore, see if anything's better north. They go to Vermont, and they find some people that are living in the snowy mountains, where there's basically no zombies, right? It's a strong idea. And but like the only people there are like 3 other teenage girls. So it's like 4 teenagers, you know, between like 17 to 19. And they're just trying to spend their days reinforcing and building the lodging at the top of a ski resort mountain. There's only like one building there, but you know, they're like, hey, this could be safe and stuff. But they're fighting the weather. So this is a man versus nature story more than anything else. And the zombies are there and are a threat, but the biggest threat is finding a way to get along in really tight circumstances. You know, all 5 people are forced to like shelter together, weather out all these badass storms. It's so intense. Like, it is life and death situation the whole way through, and you're just like, oh, these poor people, can they please get some help? And of course, they start turning on each other a little, which I think every good zombie story has, is like you take a microcosm of society in a good zombie story. You just put everybody together in an intense situation, all sorts of different people. The zombies are the external threat that just speeds everything up and escalates tensions that are already there. And that's what happens in this book. It's not so gory that it would be offensive for a young reader, but I, in my 40s, enjoyed it. Yes, it just comes out like this. Trade paperback, just like this. $15. How many pages? For like 230, about 230, somewhere close to that. They're gonna have 2 more books apparently set in this world. I dig it, folks. I dig it a lot. If you liked Walking Dead, I definitely think you'll still like this. If you have ever liked any sort of young adult stories, you'll dig it. But if you also just like either zombie or survival horror, it's damn good. It's really damn good. You really get a sense of like the different personalities and how they conflict with each other and how they're trying to get along. It's really, really cool. It's definitely my choice of the week. Chrissy, you want to read it? Yeah, I'll. That's my wife. She's upstairs. You can totally read it. I love it. I think you'll like it too. Last comic that I got is this. You may recognize this. That's Death Dealer by Frank Frazetta, a famous painting he did back in 1973, an original idea. Frazetta, of course, is very famous for painting the first Conan covers, sort of coming up with his look, as well as all sorts of other great fantasy paintings. Eventually, became pretty famous making movie posters, like Clint Eastwood's movie The Gauntlet. That's a pretty badass Frank Frazetta cover. But he initially got his start doing comics. What rating again? I don't know. Like, I'd give Clementine something like 3 thumbs out of 3. I give it 3 thumbs. I don't think they're caricatures, Big Gay Dave, for what it's worth. Is this considered canon? Yeah, I think it would be considered canon. Yeah, it definitely would be. Anyway, so Frank Frazetta is awesome. Someday I'll do an episode about his comics and stuff like that and what he brought to comics, because he was great. Just great. These days, his creative property is run by a group called the Frazetta Girls, which is his granddaughters. You may have heard of Sarah Frazetta does a fair amount of interviews and stuff talking up, his legacy, his ideas and stuff. They have licensed Death Dealer to a publisher called Opus, right? No, yeah, Opus, but they have a subline called Incendium. And, it's an adaptation of the character, coming up with a story for Death Dealer. This is written by a guy named Mitch Iverson, art by Stefano Martino. And I want to be clear here, just full disclosure. Sarah Frazetta reached out to me and offered to send me these comics, okay? So I did not buy these. So take my opinion with a grain of salt, right? Because maybe I'm biased there. I was given these. And I'll answer that question in a bit, Tari. That's an interesting question. Anyway, it's interesting. I wouldn't call it, like, exceptional. But, if you like barbarian stuff, if you like, a badass guy in a medieval type of world fighting monsters and sorcerers and stuff like that, it might be for you. I've only read the first of the 3 issues. But I love Frank Frazetta, so I'm kind of, like, biased into, like, wanting to like this. There are different variant covers. I got the ones that are based on Frazetta's original paintings. Frank Frazetta, I went to his museum. He, in his later years, had an estate in the Poconos and created a small museum housing his original art. And most days he or his wife, Ellie, would be there managing it. And I went up there with some friends. It was a long time ago. And Frank was in his last few years. He wasn't doing so well, so I didn't get to meet him. I did get to meet his wife and talk to her quite a bit about his career. She was very friendly and, had lots of stories. She'd been with Frank forever, and she talked about his process and about, like, his highs and lows and his ideas and his process. It was really interesting, and it was really beautiful to look at paintings like this right up close. That was really, really awesome. But yeah, so Sarah reached out, and I was like, yeah, I'm curious. If you're offering to send me these, I'm curious. And I think that what I'll probably be doing when we find some time that works for both of us is I asked Sarah if she would be up for an interview on Comic Tropes, and she said she would be. I think that she's got a lot that she can share with us about her grandfather's work and legacy, and he did a lot in comic books. So anyway, you may want to look into this if you like, badass sword and sandals type, barbarian violence and escapades and stuff. Oh, and I'll have some more Frank Frazetta news now that I think of it, like in a little bit, because I've got a lot of news this week that I'm about to get into. But yeah, so I was sent that. I just want to disclose that. Oh, you know what? I didn't realize I did bring issues 2 and 3 here just so that I could show you the covers. So look at that. Look at these covers. There's just so they're dynamic. He was great at like musculature. He was great at like, you know, beautiful women. He was great at monsters. Whoa, John Dorsey says, "Oh hi, you caught me spending money on your excellent live stream. You may have reviewed Zdarsky's new Bat launch already, but curious on your take. Also, a chance for me to hail Jimenez's great art." I did talk about that last episode, so I would definitely recommend checking that one out. My take was I liked it. I didn't love it. I think I bought in my head. I had like built it up a little too much maybe because I've loved so much that Zdarsky has done on crime books like New Bern and Daredevil. But it was good. It was good, and I'm curious to see where it goes. And there's no question that Jorge Jimenez's artwork is gorgeous. Gorgeous. Steve Sorensen, thank you for your super chat, and says, "How much would we have to pay to have you dance?" A lot. A lot. Now, in person, I'd be happy to do a silly dance, but I think in real life, like I'd have to get back there. That's like, because I've got a couch right here. If I stood up here, all you'd see is my gut. So to like climb around there and do a dance, you know, dance monkey. Yeah, that's going to have to be a lot because I don't want to be anybody's dancing monkey. I also got a couple other things that were sent to me. So full disclosure, I did not pay for these. So, you know, take this with you know, grain of salt because I've got bias. When I'm given something, that's not the same as spending my own money, which is important to me. But Nick Barucci from Dynamite reached out and said that he was willing to send me any sort of art books that they publish if I wanted to, you know, potentially cover something like that. And there was actually one artist that they produce an art book for that I said, if you're offering, like, there is one person that I would like. It wasn't this one, by the way. I'm going to keep that a secret for the future. But I was like, I could use help on research, so if you're willing to. Since he got my address, Nick's a generous guy. They sent me a ton of stuff. How much is a lot? To me, a lot is like hundreds. But look at this. A nice book on the Romita legacy, which is about both junior and senior. All sorts of, like, this is just a gorgeous book. So this can definitely give me some important background when I eventually do episodes on Romita Junior and Senior, you know? Here's another one that they sent me that's really cool. Let's see, John said, "Steve, to be fair, I did get him to sing several weeks back." Well, singing is a little different. This is The Art of Painted Comics. That is a thick tome. Of course, we've got, like, Alex Ross, but there's other stuff in here. Like, from back in, like, the 1940s and 50s, going into, like, you know, the 60s. Like, just the history of all these great painted pieces of artwork and the artists that did them. Isn't that kind of cool? I can't wait to look at this. I didn't ask for these, but they did send them to me. Dynamite makes a lot of art books. Great art books. Like, nice hardcover book. Look, The Art of Atari. Now, this is probably only going to appeal to people of a certain age, like me. I don't know how old any of you guys out there are. I know that, like, for instance, Jim is in the chat, and he's about my age. Some of us grew up with Atari, not Nintendo. And the artwork on the boxes for Atari were awesome. They really captured your imagination. And they kind of had to because the game itself was very simple, you know, pixel stuff. But the paintings that they would have would really catch the eye. And so this is a book about, like, all those amazing, amazing paintings and artwork. Cliff Spawn was somebody that like did a lot of paintings for these. Like, that just looks cool. That captures your imagination. And the game itself was much more simple. But so they had to catch your eye with something more flashy. It's really cool. And then the last one I wanted to show that I haven't even had time to like open and really pour through yet, but I've talked this guy up before. I love Sean Phillips' art, and they sent me a book of Sean Phillips' art. So I'm just giving you an idea of the size. The camera's pretty close, but huge book about like Sean Phillips' art. The art of Sean Phillips. So they sent me a bunch of lovely books. Thank you, Nick. Thank you to your team there at Dynamite. That was really, really kind of you. And I'm sure some of those will help me. And if I ever use them in my research, I'll be mentioning that, okay? Uber jealous. I gotta buy that Art of the Atari. Steve, it's a great book. It's a great book. It's really, really cool. So I'm going to start. Did I talk about Oni yet? I'm actually just about to. I'm about to get into the news of the week now, folks. This is where everything changes. Those were reviews. Now it's time for news. And while I do the news, I sort of peck away at drawing something. So last week I started to draw this as an homage to George Perez's famous Crisis on Infinite Earths cover. Vampirella being held by a gorilla, and I was going to put in more sort of tropes and stuff. But honestly, I didn't love how it was looking. So I decided to redraw it. Some of the differences were just like, drawing it a little bit bigger so that I could give Vampirella a little bit more detail in her face. Just sort of like rework the posture just a little bit to be closer to like the original. Because, hey, they got it right, and I'm doing an homage. And then, for the gorilla, just sort of giving him a little bit more of a pained expression. This guy seemed sort of bored. It just wasn't that interesting. So I'm going to try to redo that while I talk to you all about the news of the week. That's a shitty pen. Darn. Oh, yeah, I know. Yeah, Bill Sienkiewicz was probably influenced by some of the same artists that are shown in that book. Let's see. Chrissy says that I need to narrow and tall my chat window, that it's not easy enough to see. So let me move that over a little bit like that. And then I'll move myself up like that. And I'll move this artwork over a little. Does that work? Where can I get the John Romita book? I guess I don't know off the top of my head. You'd have to do a Google search. But this is all produced by Dynamite, so you could just say, the Romita Legacy Dynamite, and I'm sure that, Google will tell you where you can find it. Did you like my art of Atari? Yes. Very good, Tari. All right, so let me pull up the first news of the week. And I think I'll start with Oni. That's what's in the thumbnail, and that was pretty. There's a few big pieces of news this week. Oni Press is great, or Oni Press has been great. Maybe it will still be great. I don't know. They have produced a lot of stuff that I've loved in the past. I know off the top of my head, one of my personal favorites was absolutely Scott Pilgrim. That was great. They've had so many great books. Started with the best of intentions, but the original founders of the company have moved on. They're not there anymore, and it wasn't that long ago that it was purchased by a bigger company, and they went through some changes and stuff. But just this past week, there were some big changes at Oni. First, they laid off a good portion, if not all, of the senior staff. We're talking the head of marketing, vice presidents, all sorts of really important figures that have done a lot to evolve Oni Press over the years. They let off a ton of people, and they backed out of being at San Diego Comic-Con. They canceled their panels, they canceled their booth. They are not going to be there. And if it was just that, that wouldn't necessarily be news. You know, it would be news, but it wouldn't be the kind of news that I'm about to get into, which is a little bigger, because then they issued a press release. And it was a pretty tone-deaf press release, which might not be that surprising since they laid off, like their marketing people. It really got lambasted by both fans and professionals alike the whole week that this press release did. We're talking, I don't know, just everybody, honestly. Almost everybody had a hot take on it, and I don't blame them because it does not come across great. They start by saying, hey, there's been a lot of, news and rumors this week, but don't believe them all. And it's like, don't believe them all. I mean, people are telling us that they've been laid off. I don't know what is not true about that. And then they go on to just say, hey, we're going to be, pushing forward and creating more content and this and that. They never use the word comics. They never mention a specific title or a specific creator to talk up, which I think is a miss. If you're making comics, I think you got to mention that. Wow, thank you so much for the super chat, Sam. That means a lot to me. I really sincerely appreciate that. Anyway, I don't want to be a guy that's just jumping on the bandwagon here, but I did think that it was a pretty poorly worded press release, which is even more maybe than the layoffs. The bad press release really earned the ire of the industry, it seemed. And I'll be honest, if you have a project at Oni at any stage in development at this point, I'd be concerned if I were you. I'd be a little concerned. Because when they start laying off the senior staff, it gets very hard to continue to produce things. Who knows? Who knows? Thanks for stopping in, Cheesier. I know Oni Press because of Scott Pilgrim. Sure, a lot of people do. But let me see. Let me pull up a little bit of details on Oni, because they've done some great stuff in the past. No question. I remember that they were the earliest publisher of Kevin Smith's books when he was doing his Clerks books and stuff like that. That was great. That was a great time. Who else? I'm trying to look at some of their other goods. Oh, Queen and Country. That was a pretty great spy series. That was really good. Sixth Gun was popular. What else was really good there? Oh, yeah, Whiteout. Come on, Whiteout was a fantastic thriller mystery book. That was fantastic. Maybe I've said fantastic too much. Yeah, I think it was started with the best of intentions. Back in 97. They were great when they started out. They were great. And they've done a lot of stuff that they should definitely be proud of. But to lay off so many people all at once and then just sort of have a tone-deaf press release, it makes me worry a little bit about how much life they have left in them doing something like that. I'm not privy to any internal details, so maybe it's not as bad as I seem to think it is, but I don't think it's good. I don't think it's a good thing. I wanted to say I loved your Jason Aaron Thor episode. It's been one of my favorite comic runs. Oh, well, thanks. Oh, yeah. Invader Zim and Rick and Morty. And you know what? Rick and Morty was some of that was really, really funny. I thought the Dungeons and Dragons Rick and Morty with Jim Zub was really funny. So, yeah, I'll miss some of that stuff. Because I don't think that they have the Rick and Morty license anymore. Was Hip Flask Oni? I don't remember. That's interesting. Yeah, they put out James Stokey's stuff. Wanton Soup. Yup. What else? They've had a lot of great books. There's no question. I'm definitely not trying to disparage them historically. They've done some amazing books. But, it was started by some guys that were, really, really smart, including Bob Schreck. Bob Schreck, has edited some really important books, and he was one of the two co-founders of Oni. That's an important guy in comics history. He knows a lot about comics. He's a smart guy. But he's not there anymore. He hasn't been there for a long time. And I think that the company did better with somebody like that at the helm. Is Homelander the kid in Pros and Cons story? I don't quite understand. Tari follows up asking, what about Resident Evil on Netflix? Yeah, the third live-action version of Resident Evil, because there was the movie series, and then they did a one-off movie like a year or so ago. I guess it didn't do that well, although I thought all the movies were entertaining enough for what they were. And I like Resident Evil, and I'm a sucker for just zombies and horror, so I'll try anything horror-related, and I can even enjoy some pretty crappy horror as long as it moves. I don't mind it sometimes if it's dumb. I don't always mind. It's just a genre that I really enjoy. So I'll forgive quite a bit, is what I'm saying. I've watched some of the new Netflix Resident Evil show. I don't know. It probably isn't for me, because the dialogue is kind of weird. It's painful. It's not great. It's not great. He's the one that worshipped Miller, Shrek, him, right? Bob Schreck did work very closely with Frank Miller, and I think he has tremendous admiration for Frank Miller. I liked Resident Evil Netflix. Lance Reddick is great in anything. Well, Lance Reddick absolutely elevates things. I don't think that the performances in the show are bad. I think that some of the dialogue is just sort of weak and weird. And I also think that the special effects on the show are sort of like a CW TV show level. And I generally have come to expect a little bit more out of Netflix originals. Steve Sorensen with the Super Chat. Kaiju Max. Yep, Kaiju Max by Xander Cannon was Oni Press. Did you ever read that? I do have that. I haven't finished it, actually. So, good reminder. But, yeah, cool book. Cool. As Abed would say. Fake Abed, not real Abed. I refuse to watch the Netflix series of Resident Evil. It's atrocious. That's fine. I get it. I felt like it was a little cheap. Looks like Oni Press uses multiple distributors. I was just thinking if they were exclusive to Diamond, it might be another hit to Diamond. Diamond's probably doing okay from what I've seen, actually. They seem to be doing okay. But let's move on to some more news, because I've got a bunch of news pieces this week, and we're already a little way into the show. Here's like some rumors and stuff. Some of it is news, some of it is rumors. And we're talking here. Let me come up with a jingle for this segment. MCU News, MCU News, MCU News and Rumors. I'll just soundbite that. I'll have my audio technician do that, and he can play that every week. So these are all either news or rumors on casting for various Marvel Cinematic Universe projects. This first one is actual confirmed news. Alden Ehrenreich, he played Han Solo in the Solo movie, so that's probably what people know him best from. He's been cast in the upcoming Disney Plus show Ironheart, the Riri Williams show. Pause to say John Dorsey's super chat here. I feel like the Resident Evil show dialogue being bad matches the first few games. Seems appropriate if you're an older fan. You were almost a Jill sandwich. I know what you're talking about there, but I don't think it was intentional, for what it's worth. So anyway, as to who he's playing, not disclosed, but I have a suspicion. This is the part that's like a rumor. If Alden is in Ironheart, I could see him playing Ezekiel Stain. That's the son of who's the Stane that like was Ironmonger in the first Marvel movie. I forget. Obadiah. Obadiah Stane was the original Ironmonger. In the comics, he's got a son, Ezekiel, that essentially is the new Ironmonger. Okay? And I feel like that would make some sense in that, like, you know, it's like a next generation of Iron Man, right? Like, Riri isn't like the son of a Stark, but she's created the new iteration of like what essentially is the Iron Man armor. And to have her go up against maybe like a guy from like the Stane family, like the next generation of that, makes some sense to me. If they were drawing from the comics, who's to say that they would? It's just wild speculation based on that. That's totally alive. Ironheart will be, for instance, in November's, the next Marvel movie. She will be in Wakanda Forever. Supposedly she developed some sort of technology that kicks everything off. I don't know what that would be or exactly how I think they'll do Arno Stark. It's possible, I suppose, especially now that like the multiverse is in play. It's possible. But yeah, Ironheart, or at least Riri Williams, will be in Black Panther 2, Wakanda Forever. So she'll be in the Marvel Cinematic Universe soon, and then it probably won't be too much longer after that when her show starts, especially since we've now heard that they've cast a key actor in it. The rest of this is all speculation, all taken from Reddit, posts on Reddit, so none of this is backed up. Take this with like a whole bottle of salt, not just a pinch, because I think it's all bullshit. They might get one or two of these like guesses right by accident, but I thought it would be fun to talk about anyway, okay? So for instance, there's a post on Reddit that says that it's been leaked that actor Penn Badgley has been cast as Mr. Fantastic in the Fantastic Four movie. He's on a Netflix show called You, where he actually plays like a total like creep. He has certainly the right look to play Mr. Fantastic, but I don't know if I believe it. He is at that sort of actor level that like Marvel likes to get so that they could get a few years out of him and get them like on affordable. Does salt come in bags or cans? Cans. Salt in a bag sounds dangerous. I hope the next Black Panther is good, Joe, because I've liked every movie that Ryan Coogler has directed, from Fruitvale Station to Creed to the first Black Panther. I don't know how it's going to work without Black Panther himself in it. That just sounds weird to me. Like, just sounds like a bunch of people going like, boy, sure wish T'Challa was here. Well, he's in space. You know, I don't know. If the rumors are true that Namor plays a central role, I could see that saving it a little bit, because Namor's, I think, a pretty fascinating character. But I don't understand how that could like work like structurally without like a hero at the center of it. I don't get it, but who knows? I do trust Ryan Coogler. He's a very, very good director. Very good. Allison, I'm not against people sending me the comic, but what I'm planning on doing is at some point soon getting a P.O. box so that people can do that, okay? Because I don't really want to give my personal address out to sort of people that I don't know yet. I've given it to like basically one or two companies, but that's a little bit different. So hopefully you understand that. But I thought John Krasinski was Mr. Fantastic. Well, he's a Mr. Fantastic, but he was a Mr. Fantastic in a parallel universe. So that does not mean that he's been cast as the Mr. Fantastic. No, Marvel could definitely still cast someone else. Anything that, like, you know, Doctor Strange or Spider-Man had happen in a parallel universe is sort of up for grabs as to, like, what they want to do with it next. But now we're going to get into, like, even more bonkers, okay? So, fine. Penn Badgley as Mr. Fantastic. Who knows? So now... now we get into the really bonkers Marvel Cinematic News. And again, this was all posted on Reddit with the claim that it's a leak of what Kevin Feige will talk about this weekend at San Diego Comic-Con. Personally, this gets crazier and crazier as I go along, so I don't personally believe it. I don't, but I think it's fun to talk about, okay? The first one, it sounds plausible enough, that they've cast Isa Gonzalez as Elektra. We know that they're bringing back, Charlie Cox as Matt Murdock Daredevil. We know that, Vincent D'Onofrio has been brought back as Kingpin. But Elodie Young, who played Elektra on Netflix, is definitely, working on a different show. She's not available. So maybe they recast that. Maybe. I think it's false, too. Thank you. Thank you for the super chat. We'll see. But okay, it starts off reasonable enough, right? They might recast Elektra, so okay. And this next one sounds cool. These things sound cool, but I just don't know if I believe them. Anthony Starr. Everybody loves him as a bad guy. He's fantastic as Homelander on The Boys. That's truly a villain you love to hate. He's killing it. He's crushing it on that show. He's fantastic. The rumor is he's been cast as the villain in the next Blade movie. He's been cast as Dracula himself. I don't know. Dracula's never been... Well, Dracula was sort of like the original enemy of Blade, but once Blade sort of got his own comics, he sort of got his own enemies too. So I don't know. And they already did a version of Dracula in Blade 3. It didn't really work so great, but maybe. I don't know if I believe that one. What else? Supposedly, Disney Plus is making a World War Hulk miniseries. That one I'm having trouble believing because that would be very expensive to have. Because World War Hulk is, kind of like a Thor Ragnarok thing where the character is always Hulk. He's never Bruce Banner. That's expensive to create a 100% digital character all the time. I know they're doing something with She-Hulk. I know they've already got the model for Hulk. And the scale that the Hulk operates on, fighting all the superheroes and aliens and stuff like that. That just sounds so big. I have a hard time believing that Disney could make that as a TV show. I have a hard time believing that. I agree, Chad. Yeah, Boys is going to be filming soon, so I don't know. There's more. Supposedly, they've cast 2 characters in X-Men. And I love the idea behind them, but I just don't think that they're that far ahead on X-Men. Supposedly, Giancarlo Esposito as Professor X. Hey, if so, he's got gravitas. He can play, a guy like Professor X. I would totally be down if they cast Giancarlo Esposito as Professor X. And Glenn Powell as Cyclops. Possible. I don't think he's as well known, but he has the right look. If you saw the most recent Top Gun movie, Top Gun Maverick, Glenn Powell was the humongously buff, hot-headed guy that was butting heads with everyone. He was real sarcastic and stuff like that. Yeah, I know, MF. Planet Hulk was basically done for Thor Ragnarok, but World War Hulk is a little different, so who knows? And here's one... They're saying that Black Bolt will be back in the Marvel Cinematic Universe in the upcoming movie Marvels. That's the one that has Captain Marvel, Miss Marvel, and Monica Rambeau. All 3 people in the comics have used a title like either Miss or Ms. or Captain Marvel. All 3 have. And so who knows? If Black Bolt is in there, then there's our confirmation that Kamala Khan is an Inhuman, I would say. I'm not sure that I don't know. It seems hard to believe. And here's... These last 2 are even more bonkers. We're getting more and more progressively crazier, right? Spider-Man 4 is happening with Tobey Maguire. That would be something that they'd announce. And here's the thing. If that was even happening, why would Kevin Feige be the one announcing it? Because that's a Sony project. So I don't know. I don't know if I believe that. And finally, supposedly they've got a director for Fantastic Four. That hasn't been announced. We don't know who would direct Fantastic Four. They're saying Steven Spielberg would direct it. I have a hard time imagining Steven Spielberg working sort of as like a hired director for a movie studio. He picks his own projects. I don't know. They should get Jacob Elordi as Scott Summers. I don't know that actor. Well, there's spoilers of who she is in the ep of Ms. Marvel. Not necessarily, Iron Shell, because I actually have some more news on that in a sec. Not necessarily. Because I'm not here to make spoilers, really, of anything. But since we talked about Ms. Marvel, Kamala Khan, let me jump into that. That season just wrapped up, okay? And different people have interpreted something in it different ways. I don't think it's a spoiler to say this. Her friend tells Kamala that he found a mutation in her DNA. A lot of people say, oh, mutation, that means mutant, that means she's not an Inhuman, she's a mutant, and that's introducing the X-Men. I don't necessarily think that's the case. The MCU does like to give you almost like, lead you down a path and then like subvert that expectation. They do that stuff a lot. If she was an Inhuman, she would also potentially have that mutation in her DNA. If she, was part of Clandestine from another dimension, she could have a mutation in her DNA. So I don't think it's confirmation that she is a mutant for sure. Our own Chris Pierce is Cyclops. That's me shooting my laser eyes. Thank you, though, Steve. But here's the news about it. So that was what happened. That was like a thing that happened on the show, right? But editor Sana Amanat was one of the co-creators of Kamala Khan's version of Ms. Marvel. She co-created Kamala Khan with writer G. Willow Wilson. And Sana recently had an interview with Empire magazine talking about like Ms. Marvel. And one thing that was interesting there was she said G. Willow Wilson and herself originally did pitch Kamala Khan as a mutant. But keep in mind, what was that time like for Marvel? They were saying, like, no new important mutant characters. Instead, we're going to push the Inhumans. So that's sort of how she became an Inhuman, and basically the most popular Inhuman. People like Kamala Khan. Readers like that character. But, like, the original idea was to have her as a mutant. And then they say, well, does that mean she's a mutant on the show? And she's like, I don't know. I don't think anybody knows yet. So we'll see. Different people there saying that like they either hope that she is or isn't an Inhuman. Yes, I already talked about the Oni Press stuff. It's Demolisha, but you can always watch this later and go over some of that stuff. They played the X-Men 97 theme music? I didn't hear that. I if that's the case, I did not pick up on that. But then again, I guess I didn't watch that too much. All that said, personally, I really liked the Ms. Marvel show. I thought it was really well done. I liked it a lot. I found Ms. Marvel utterly charming. The actress that they got to play her just did the right amount of sort of sweet and nerdy. There's just so much similar to Kamala Khan as, heroes like early Peter Parker Spider-Man and Richard Rider as Nova, some of those young, sweethearted, outcast kids. Like, I liked the show a lot. I really did. I think they did a great job on it. It worked for me. I had a great time watching it each week. And I'm excited to see her in movies. She was perfect. It was just great casting. And I found it interesting to just sort of see a Pakistani American family portrayed in just like such a down to earth, like, hey, this is just their family. But it was an interesting dynamic that we haven't necessarily seen in popular culture a lot. So it was different enough, and I liked it. I liked it a lot. It worked for me. It worked for me! Maybe I'm an easy mark, though. I love comics and stuff. But no, I think that, like, the thing they did best on that show was sincerely, like, the lead actress. They really cast her perfectly. I thought that they got, like, the character I've read in the comics, it matched perfectly with what was in my head. Just perfectly. Yeah, I heard the theme in Doctor Strange. I heard the X-Men theme in Doctor Strange, but I didn't really notice it in Ms. Marvel. So I don't know. Well, yeah. Let's see what other news I have. Here's a light piece of news that's really only sort of tangentially comics, okay? But sort of is comics. Hasbro makes all the, Marvel superhero toys, the action figures. What are those called? Is it Marvel Select? I don't collect them, so I don't know 100% what that's called. But they make those, right? They announced a really cool thing that's coming up this fall. It's called Hasbro Selfie Series. And basically, their app will allow you to scan your own face, and they will custom 3D print your face on any of their 6-inch figures, which includes, of course, the Marvel stuff, but just to be clear, also includes stuff like G.I. Joe, Ghostbusters, Power Rangers, like I might put my Marvel Legends, that's what it is. Thanks. Yep, sorry, I don't collect them. But you could put your head on, Spider-Man or Ms. Marvel or whoever, Falcon, whoever you wanted, that you thought fit you. I'd be tempted to put mine on, like, a G.I. Joe body, because I really like G.I. Joe. Star Wars, right? There's also Star Wars. That's a huge one. But yeah, so that's something that's coming out this coming fall. And I think they may have some sort of a preview version of it at San Diego Comic-Con, but I'm not 100% on that one. I thought I read that, but then when I went back to look for it, I couldn't quite find that news confirmed. So, but that could be cool if you've ever wanted to sort of see your head on your favorite character's body. Cosplay as a toy. And the pictures that they're showing, like, the 3D printing is better than, like, what you can do at home, where it's sort of like, like layer, and you sort of see that striation, and you have to, like, maybe sand that down. It looks like it's nice and smooth and stuff like that they could just do a pretty... Who would if I chose G.I. Joe? I mean, the temptation would be Snake Eyes, but then again, like, they've got some really cool figures in the classified line. It depends on how expansive it is. It could be cool to be on Gung Ho. He's pretty ripped. You mean I can be Salacious Crumb at last? There's probably going to be limits, Dave. There's probably going to, because I don't think that they could just, like, have easy access to their entire inventory of 6-inch figures and put your head on it. My guess is they'll come up with, like, between 2 to 6 figures for each sort of line, and you could put yourself on that figure. That's my guess. Andrew Jefferson with his super chat. Anything you're hopeful to see at San Diego Comic-Con? I mean, I'm not going, so, like, all I'd be seeing would be, like, the news that's coming out of there. I just want to see some interesting new comics announced. That's all. Just, like, see what kind of talent is coming up with their own creator-owned comics. That's the stuff I'll be curious to hear about. Yeah. Toy splay. That's good. I wonder how they handle kid faces. I assume I assume that they just scale it to about the same head size no matter what, but I think you could scan any face. Mass-produced bodies. Only the head is custom, maybe custom box. Probably some sort of a simple custom box. Yeah, probably. Oh, it's only allowed for people 16 or plus? That makes sense. I didn't see that. I didn't see that. But that makes sense. That makes sense. I feel like it could end up eerie seeing my son's face on a G.I. Joe. It could. It could. But I still personally want to try it when it comes out. That's something I would love, an action figure of myself. You guys have seen my Comic Tropes show, probably. You see that, like, I've got a puppet version of myself in the back there. That amuses me. So you never know. I think it would be kind of fun to have an action figure of yourself. Anybody else out there? Oh, I should mention, the price point is between $50 and $60. So it's not cheap to do this. But that's because they can't mass produce each head. There's going to be an expense there that's not insignificant. But it's going to be, you're paying for it to be done at, like, a professional level. So depends on what it's worth to people. I've been reading Radiant Black and Something is Killing the Children. They're my new Invincible and Walking Dead. Thanks for the reviews. Yeah, they're both really good books. I totally agree. Totally agree. Yeah, current figures, yeah, the figure themselves is $25, but it's going to be more expensive to do a custom one with yourself. It just is. I've seen the estimates between $50 and $60. $50 and $60. But for a one-time thing. I do have some news on crowdfunded comics coming up. Let's see, what's... you know what? In fact, that's what I'll talk about next. But I'm not going to get too deep into it. There's this... I had no idea who this guy was. But there's a guy named Eric July. And I guess he's a content creator. I think he, like, makes music, too. And mostly, I guess he just talks about libertarianism. And, whatever, I guess, right? So that's what he does. And he says he's tired of woke comics, which always makes me laugh, because that's just such a... To me, that's non-existent. That's not a real thing. But whatever, if you're not getting the comics you want, I think it's a good idea to make your own, and that's what he wants to do. And so he started a crowdfunding campaign that has raised a lot of money. A lot of money. He's raising it, I think, on his own platform. It's a book called A.X.E. It looks like a very generic superhero book to me. It didn't look interesting at all to me. And I'm not like saying it's crap. I'm just saying it didn't look interesting. But he's raised over $2 million towards it. But then again, here's the thing. That isn't like comics fans seeing a new comic and going, we're in. That is his existing fan base saying, like, oh, you're producing something that happens to be a comic? Of course we'll support you. So there is an important distinction that I think is worth mentioning there. That is not the same as, like, if this book was in a comic book store, it's not going to sell, like, 2 million copies or anything like that. But whatever. The artist on it seems to be a guy named Cliff Richards. What can I say about Cliff Richards? He's worked for, like, Marvel and DC. He's done stuff like Birds of Prey. I would call him, without, like, peace and love, but I would call him a jobber. Like, there are some guys that just sort of, like, can crank out the work. They're on time. Their work is clean enough to read. It's not necessarily as exciting or stylized as, like, some of the big guys out there, like, say, a Jorge Jimenez today. I've talked up Daniel Warren Johnson. He's amazing. Classic guys in the past, to, like, Frank Miller, Jim Lee, Bill Sienkiewicz, all sorts of greatest. He's fine. Oh, hold on. I almost missed a super chat here. What's it say? Oh, hold on. I gotta find it. I'm sorry. It is... Where is it? I'm trying to find it. Oh, Ven. Thank you. It says, I'll catch up what I missed later, but I wanted to say thank you. Your comics news is a highlight of my week and makes Monday nights, Tuesday mornings great. Oh, awesome. Thanks for being here. Yeah, MK Geiger's saying, like, yeah, he's like a BC level artist, and I think that that's fair. I might lean a little bit more towards C, and C isn't bad. It isn't bad at all. It's competent. But anyway, I look at the art and I'm like, okay, I don't think the art or the story idea is captivating, like people like, this is what I've been looking for in comics. this guy obviously has an existing, very strong fan base. And I think you will continue to hear about it, though, because of how much money it's raising. Because more than $2 million, that's a lot of money to raise for a comic book. Anyway, yeah, the guy's name is Eric July. I guess he's always wanted to do his own comics, so more power to him for seeing his dream come through. It's not easy to finish a comic, even if you have money, even if you have a fan base, it's nothing. It's never easy to make a comic. So total props for getting a comic book done at all, ever, no matter how much. So anyway, I give who's making it? Just some guy named Eric July. He's like a super libertarian. So he makes his whole sort of platform off of talking about his politics, but he says that comics out there are woke and he's tired of having politics in comics, so he's making a non-political comic. I think it's wordplay. I think it sounds like it would be a political comic, but I'm not an expert, okay? I'm coming at that. I'd never heard of this guy before looking up the comic book news of the week. I'm not an expert on him. As far as libertarianism goes, I'm not going to get too deep into that, but I when I was younger, I thought it made sense. And as I got older, personally, I came to feel like it doesn't functionally work. Like the idea of hands off, government hands off everything, let the market dictate things. I don't believe it works personally. So it's not like a philosophy that I ascribe to. So I'm not going to be supporting that book, but it's raising a lot of money. So obviously there is, a lot of people will hopefully be getting this comic. I say that because now I'm thinking about it. And how many big crowdfunding campaigns have been made by people of all sorts of people on all sorts of platforms that don't get finished? I don't know if you've been ripped by anything. I have. I know a lot of people that read comics that have. There's lots of comics out there on crowdfunding platforms that just don't get completed, even if it looks like they've got a lot of the artwork done. So, who knows? I like the idea of crowdfunding because it can get things done that won't get done otherwise. Here's an example. I like G.I. Joe, right? Hasbro has their own crowdfunding platform where if they make a certain amount of money, they'll produce a toy that they don't believe they could produce in a mass scale and have it be successful. But if enough dedicated people are willing to contribute and pledge, they'll produce that toy. And I supported a Hasbro project for that. This new G.I. Joe Cobra Hiss tank. It's big. I think that's cool. I have some faith because there's a company behind it. And I've supported other things on Kickstarter in the back. And I'd say I have about a 70% success rate with what but I've supported less and less crowdfunded projects as I've gone on. I don't know. It's a good idea if the person behind it can complete what they promise. And I think that, unfortunately, a lot of the history of crowdfunding comics is hit and miss. I don't think that there's anyone that has a great track record on doing it consistently. Let's see. This is an interesting comment by Spider S. I'm libertarian leaning myself, but Rippaverse is cringe, as its creator Eric July was trying to make it first as libertarian hip-hop metal band, and now he's doing outrage at woke stuff. That was sort of the impression I was getting, that it was designed to get headlines and stuff, which seems to be working, but will it work long term, and will this get produced? That's a big question mark, I think. That's a lot of money. Well, they say that it's done, Joe, but who knows? Daniel says, I rarely back crowdfunding projects. I'm not against it. There's a chance someday, folks, I might do a crowdfunding campaign. But if I did, my book would be at least 70% complete, if not 100% complete, before I was doing a crowdfunding thing. And since I have this platform, a show, I could sort of show ideas at that. Inferno Girl Red is crowdfunded. I didn't know that. I don't know about that crowdfunding campaign. I do like the Massiveverse, so I'd be curious to see more. It's $35. Yeah, that wasn't the last point I was going to make, but Andrew Jefferson just put it in chat. It's $35 for a 96-page book. That is kind of pricey, especially when you've got that many supporters. Folks, as a point of comparison, okay? Like, The Walking Dead and young adult comics sell like nothing else. This stuff sells, all right? Does it get $2.5 million? I don't know, but it gets a lot. This is over 200 pages for $15, okay? I think that, like, something close to that, I think at $35, you should be talking about a hardcover book that's like 500 pages, not a 96-page book. That does not make sense to me to support. So, let's see what the market does. Rogue Sun is awesome. Massiveverse is great. Yeah, I've really been digging the Massiveverse. I'm so glad I came across Radiant Black. I really, really am. I really like it. I think that as far as, like sort of a new superhero book, Radiant Black is great. The fact that it's sort of got an attached universe to it is just sort of icing on the cake. That's way too high. Obviously, it isn't for everybody, but I think it is now that we're talking about that. But anyway, I think I've said everything I've got for today about that and crowdfunding. Again, I'm not against crowdfunding in general, but I do think that it has a very spotty record, and, buyer beware. Buyer beware. Here's one that's a little more indie, folks. Pantheon Graphic Library. Pantheon Graphic Library is a little more of an indie press outfit, but they are producing a book by a pretty prominent guy in the underground comic scene. They're going to print a new version of Art Spiegelman's autobiography, which is called Breakdowns. Now, Art Spiegelman did a lot with the underground comics world with stuff like Zap Comics. He did Mouse, which, won a Pulitzer. Pretty famous guy. I think he also co-created the Garbage Pail Kids stickers. He worked at that company then and created the idea of Garbage Pail Kids. So Art Spiegelman's done all sorts of stuff, from like highbrow stuff to lowbrow stuff, but he, comics. So he's going to put out his autobiography originally came out in 1977, and it was last printed in 2008 as a hardcover. So it's been a while. This new version will have some extra stuff. I just want to acknowledge Steve Sorensen's super chat there. It says, like you, was libertarian. Now when old stuff goes on Facebook memories, I cringe. But with you, let's see how his book does. Comics are for everyone. Some comics are. Boom Studios and Mark Waid are crowdfunding irredeemable reprints and possibly new material, despite it getting a TV adaptation. That seems unnecessary, but if it's already done, I think you've got like a reasonably high expectation that it will be fulfilled. So that's okay. Crowdfunding I'm not against. I've supported plenty of it, including this recent G.I. Joe thing on HasLab. Anyway, so yeah, this Art Spiegelman book will have his autobiography. It will also have comic sections about his youth. It will have some of his earliest underground comics included in it, and an essay by him about how comics have grown since the 1970s. He's in a unique position to comment on that with a high degree of accuracy. I remember seeing him speak once. It was really enlightening. He knows a lot about the comics world and the comics history and stuff like that. Anyway, that comes out November 29th for $25. Breakdowns, the new Art Spiegelman book. And if you haven't read stuff by Spiegelman, trust me, he's an important guy in the world of comics, and I recommend checking some of that out. So isn't Patreon crowdfunding? Well, not exactly, because, well, it could be, right? Like, if I only made comic tropes, if on Patreon it hit a certain level, then it would be crowdfunding. But I produce my show for free for everyone. Patreon is more like, I am putting something out. If you find value in that and you want to help that, like, be a reality, you can voluntarily pledge whatever you are comfortable with. But overall at this point, like, if Patreon just turned off and I had no more financial support, maybe I wouldn't be able to do comic tropes anymore. I might not be able to. I'd probably have to rethink how I make money and stuff like that. But if an individual or two come and go, I'm still making my show, and you don't have to pay anything to get it. I'm putting that on YouTube for free. So it's not really crowdfunding, I thought Irredeemable was a decent book. Yeah, I need to reread that one. Mouse is one of the best comics graphic novels ever. It's fantastic. Art Spiegelman's a really interesting dude, and his wife, Francois Moulet, has also done an awful lot for comics as well. So together, they're a little bit of a comic book power couple. There's a few of those out in the world, right? Richard and Wendy Pini, Amanda Connor and Jimmy Palmiotti, Mike and Laura Allred. There's a Walt and Louise Simonson. There's a few power couples in comics, aren't there? I'm trying to think. There's probably a couple that I'm forgetting, but there's some power couples in comics. Would you ever do a comic book and do crowdfunded? Yeah, I would. I would definitely consider that. I'll be honest. Like the stuff that I'm developing now, I originally was thinking more of, like, pitching to places like, Image and places along those lines. But then I saw how well the crowdfunding did for Axe Wielder John. And, I think that I'll claim that some of how well it did may have been because of the interview I did with its creator. I think that that's definitely a possibility. And I was like, you know what? I might have enough of an audience that I could crowdfund something on a pretty successful level and maintain 100% control. That is appealing. That is an appealing idea. And I think I would be held fairly accountable if I did something like that, because you all have access to me. I'm putting myself out there on social media. So I can't, like, hide or disappear or anything if something went wrong. I feel like that gives me a high level of accountability if I decided to do something crowdfunding. I can't just sort of like, I'd be ashamed to show my face if, like, things fell apart or something like that. But, that's me to a degree too. Like, I've learned that my personality is, honestly, to a fault, I'm a people pleaser. I have a very hard time operating if I think I've made somebody unhappy with me. It really is not healthy. I just really want to, like, placate that person and make them, like, happy and content with everything that's going on. So, not the healthiest, but a real thing about me. I really need to work on controlling that, but at least I'm aware of it. Jim Ballantyne and Holly? Yeah, maybe. Gabriel Hardman and Karina Becco. I have to admit, I don't know them. Let's see. There's more news. You think that was it? Folks, please. You gotta know me better than that by now. I've got more news. This one's a real positive thing, and it also shows, like, the changing industry. Webtoon. How many of you out there read comics on Webtoons? Nice little app. Webtoon is. You can read comics digitally. You scroll up. Owned by a company called Naver, which is a South Korean company, because digital comics are the dominant form of reading comics in that country. But the English language version, the English language creators on Webtoons, not small. Listen to some of these numbers. This was reported by Forbes, which does, business and numbers and stuff. Pretty darn reliable source. According to Forbes, Webtoons announced to them that payments to English language creators, so not all creators, just English language creators, went over $27 million since 2020. So in less than, 2020, 2021. Yeah, basically, they've been paying out an average of over $1 million a month for like the last 2 years to creators. That's an increase, just to give you a sense of the scale and the scope and the trajectory, that's an increase of 75% over what it was in 2019. So it's exploded. The popularity of Webtoon has exploded. You've probably at least heard of Lore Olympus, which goes ahead and prints print editions after a while. You can find those in Barnes and Noble and stuff like that. So just humongous. Webtoon has 82 million active users, people that are actively checking in regularly worldwide, and 15 million in the US. 15 million is good. Yes, we're a country of over 300 million people, but of course there's lots of babies and elderly and people that you can't read or are blind and so on and so forth. But Webtoon has a very quickly growing base for presenting comics. And it's a very different format. Everything is designed to just scroll. So you don't always get interesting panel-to-panel structure. Okay? That's something that goes away a little bit. But it's pretty impressive. Just huge money being paid out. Over $1 million every month being paid out to English, every month, to just English language content creators alone. So yeah, I'm reading a few things on Webtoon. I'm reading, let me double check, because I'm not a lot. Looking at Lore Olympus, and which is this one? All of Us Are Dead. And what was the other one that I was reading? I forget. But I've got two coworkers that are a lot younger than me, early 20s. And they both read, both a guy and a girl, they both read on Webtoon. Yeah, you missed me refusing to dance without a lot of money. I don't want to be a dancing monkey, but I guess everybody has their price, so we'll say I don't really want to dance, so $1,000 and I'll do a small dance, but so I don't think I'll be dancing. They get paid per view like YouTube? Essentially. Clinic of Horrors is the best Webtoon story. Really dark, but still cute. Right on. My buddy Randy does web comics. He does a bunch of them. Bullet is one. It's a really cool one. Yeah. An old acquaintance of mine has a Webtoon called Little Anna. It's very much inspired by her favorite creator, Osamu Tezuka. All of Us Are Dead is based on a Webtoon. It sure is. It's good. So, sometimes people are like, oh, comics aren't selling like I think that they should. And first of all, a couple weeks ago, we went over the numbers, and comics are selling like the best they ever have. And digital comics are on the rise. How much per view, I wonder? That I don't know. It probably depends on how many subscribers you have. I'm sure that it expands exponentially as you grow. Quibi walks so Webtoons could run. Well, Webtoons was around first. Any good sci-fi Western comic recs on Webtoons? Mitchell, I don't think I'm quite the expert to have that recommendation yet, but if anybody in the chat reads anything that they appreciate on Webtoon, now would be the time to mention that. And Tapas is another popular site for online comics, webcomics. Half the Hustle and 1/3 of the Macarena for $5,000. Yeah. I don't know if I know the song The Hustle. I don't know if I... What's that? Something like that? Do the hustle. More, you got to see my thumbs. I can't get my thumbs up high enough. Anyway, that was my dancing. Has digital comics overtaken physical copies yet? No, not even close, to be honest. Not even close. But it's growing. And those numbers show how it's growing. So, yeah. Definitely interesting. Definitely interesting. Wow, a super chat. Let's see what this says. Hey Chris, can you help mention Comic Book Christmas in July? Comics in the small little libraries on July 30th. I dropped mine in Calgary boxes this weekend. My comic is Ganky. Well, certainly, yeah. For that kind of Canadian money, I'll even do the hustle again. And the Macarena. Hey, Macarena. No, thank you. Gord, very generous super chat, and I love that idea. Yes, putting comics in those little libraries, lending libraries, and trading libraries, that stuff's awesome. Christmas in July, and Gord Cummings' book is called Ganky. So if you're in the Calgary area, maybe you want to check that out. And then this. Aha, I got you to dance for less than 1,000. Well, I did seat dancing. I'm going to equivocate there. I did not stand up and dance, like full-on dance. Like, that would probably blow all your minds, first of all, okay? I don't want to be responsible for too many eyeballs bursting all across the world. I did a little bit of sitting dancing, which is much more, palatable and calm and everything. I would blow your minds if you saw how well I dance. I would blow your minds. Glad I didn't miss this one live. There you go. Christmas book in July is promoted by Comics Kayfabe. Those guys are great, and I'm happy to promote it as well. Thank you for the super chat. Yes, Christmas in July is a great idea. Your chair is a Darth Vader transformer. Yes, I suppose in a very real way it is. Yeah, great idea. Let's see. Seat dancing doesn't count? Well, no. Rubber Band Man. Rubber Man. Oh, that's Rubber Man, not Rubber Band Man. All right. What should I have for dinner tonight? What are you all having for dinner tonight, or have you had dinner already? Because if there's a great idea out there, I want to hear it. Oh, I see some color on my screen. Let's take a look at what that is. Mian Yan says, here's $7. Would you dramatically read a Wu-Tang Clan lyric? Beats dancing, doesn't it? Also, what's your fave Silver Age Revival DC book? Silver Age Revival. My favorite Silver Age Revival would probably be The Flash, honestly. Yeah, it would probably be The Flash. I think that was that had the coolest new villains and new main character and stuff like that. As well as like good art, good stories. Yeah. Good Wu-Tang. Can I just go like, oh baby I like it raw, oh baby I like it raw? Does that count? I made Japanese curry chicken, pizza, I had spaghetti, fried flounder, steak fries, and salad. That sounds like a very healthy dinner. I appreciate that. Pizza lovers unitwa. I wonder what that means. Unitwa. So close to unite. Unitwa. I don't know. What's your fave, most obscure Marvel character? I don't know. Does Sleepwalker still count as obscure? Because if so, Sleepwalker definitely cracks me up, you know? Like, the guy that hosts Sleepwalker is always like, you know, like, oh my god, there's trouble. I gotta fall asleep. I know what you meant, John. I was just having fun. Lobster Thermidor? Oh my god, I didn't know I had a Saudi prince in... well, I guess a Saudi prince probably wouldn't be eating lobster. But, like, I've got somebody, like a Texas oil baron in here. Where are the super chats from Keith? Come on. Not slapstick. No, I don't really like slapstick. Old Chris Dirty. Yeah, that's me, OCD. Irving Forbush. Love Sleepwalker. So does Kirkman. So, in fact, yeah, like if you ever read or even watched Invincible, you can tell, like, Kirkman named one of the college characters after the host of Sleepwalker. He gave him the same name. Chicken tacos. I thought Sleepwalker was going to be in Doctor Strange 2. Oh, please. No, he's got his own franchise. You know, we're going to get Sleepwalker 1, 2, 3, 4. Ha ha! 100 times Sleepwalker, Morty. Ha ha! 100 times Sleepwalker. Sleepwalker forever. Who's your favorite wrestler? Maybe Mick Foley, honestly. I just find him really... Yeah, maybe Mick Foley. That boomerang chicken and mushroom pie was kind of small, so then I had Acme smoked salmon on Ritz crackers. Oh, okay. I understood what each of those words theoretically means. I can't afford the super chats. I'm spending all my cash on fancy French food. I see where your priorities lie. What about my fancy French food? Why don't I ever get the fancy French food? I had potatoes, ground turkey, canned tomatoes, and rice. Not bad, not bad. Oh, went away. I guess you didn't eat it after all. You must have just thrown up. Hot Sauce Kiddo said what he or she had and then took it away, so I can only assume they ate it and then didn't eat it. I just got a new TV and a Blu-ray player. I have never seen Rick and Morty. Bought the first season. Am I in for a treat? Oh, absolutely you are. Absolutely you are. But look, I am biased there. I have been a huge fan of both Dan Harmon and Justin Roiland since years and years before they ever came up with Rick and Morty. And then they had guys on that show, like that work on that show that I absolutely love. Abed, Ryan Ridley, Abed Gaith to be specific. Yeah, like so many great guys. Who created Scud? That guy works on it now as a producer. How much fancy French food does this buy? Andrew Jefferson gave me $2. I believe that would get me a small fries, small French fries. So it would keep me alive, maybe. It would keep me alive. That's all that matters. I ate food to stay alive. What was that song? I feel so alive. Who sang that? I don't even remember. It's not coming to me. Something like Hoobastank? Rob Schraub. Thanks. I love Rob Schraub. Love Rob Schraub. Yep. Roiland's games are great. So, if you've never listened to it, the funniest podcast of all time is something called the Grandma's Virginity Podcast. It's 3 people. Justin Roiland, Ryan Ridley, and Jackie Buscarino. Okay? They all work in animation and TV and stuff like that. And they're friends. They don't make it anymore. They only made something like maybe 20 episodes tops, okay? It's the funniest podcast you've ever heard. Justin's out of control on it. And they always interview somebody famous. Like, I think that, they have Rob on it. They have Dan on it. They have Robert Kirkman on it. They have guys that worked on shows like, The Simpsons or, I don't know, other popular, like, cartoons and stuff like that as well. If you've never listened to it, I sincerely recommend listening to the Grandma's Virginity Podcast. I think it's just hilarious. And I used to do some of the episode art for it back when it was coming out. So, yeah. Ryan Ridley is working for Robert Kirkman's company, Skybound, right now, writing the movie hold on. Who's Dracula's assistant? Renfield. Ridley is writing a Renfield movie that's, I think it might be done filming now. But if it's not, it's coming out soon. They're great guys. Hoobastank, yeah, I know that word's so hilarious. POD sang that? I don't even remember them. Folks, I was talking about news, wasn't I? I just went off on a total tangent. There's another piece of news I have that sort of ties back to some of the stuff I was reviewing earlier. All right? So for Frank Frazetta, okay? In addition to like comics and paintings and stuff like that, he also made a movie. It was like 83 or something like that. And it was, 1983. It's called Fire and Ice. Okay, so Frank Frazetta came up with the visuals. Ralph Bakshi did the animation. And it was written by comic book writers Roy Thomas and Jerry Conway. It was rotoscope animation. So they had actors like fighting and stuff, but then they went in and painted over them. So it looks very realistic. It sort of moves a little weird compared to what you might be used to with animation, but it's a very cool stylized barbarian type of movie. Sorcerers and monsters and dragon type stuff. The Search Begins episode of GVP is Amazing Podcast Gold. Oh, it's so good. So good. But anyway, that was called Fire and Ice. Okay? Fire and Ice. Interesting movie. Interesting. Can't call it great. It's a little slow, but it's cool. It was cool. For its time, it was pretty cool. And I recommend it. Ralph Bakshi and Frank Frazetta and Jerry Conway and Roy Thomas, those are some amazing talents. Anyway, Dynamite has announced that they're going to make a comic book based on that world of Fire and Ice. They specifically, reached out to Sarah Frazetta and the Frazetta Girls, Eddie Bakshi, who controls the Bakshi Productions and stuff like that. And so everybody that was involved in the original has approved and is on board with this new comic book, Fire and Ice, through Dynamite. I don't know exactly when it's coming out. The first few comics that they have will be a prequel set in that world, and then we'll see where it goes from there. But honestly, I think that's a very cool idea. If you like stuff like Conan or something and you want to get on the ground floor of something like it, this Fire and Ice comic could potentially be very, very cool. It of course depends also on the creative team that becomes involved, but it's good source material. It would work very well, in my opinion, as a comic. Can we talk about Dynamite? They really need to get better interior artists. Depends on the books you're talking about. I don't read every Dynamite book. I don't read every book by any publisher, but I do read one book by them, The Immortal Red Sonja. And the artwork in that by Moritat is gorgeous. So Maybe sometimes they need better. I don't know. I haven't looked at everything that they've produced, but yeah. Let's see. Jamil says, I've seen Fire and Ice, and I know that Ralph Bakshi worked on it. He was the director, but I did not know that Frank Frazetta was the visual artist. Thank you for telling me that. Makes sense, though, right? Once you've seen it, like, it looks... He did the paint, the poster, too. The movie poster. I kind of got that out. I hope this doesn't get political, but what are your thoughts on Rippaverse comics? I mean, I feel like we talked about it for a good 15, 20 minutes. I don't have much more to add beyond that. Let's see. By the way, when you're doing test streams, does it hinder you if too many people join them? No. I just did that one earlier today because I'm really close to figuring out a way to, instead of like show this box down here with all the chats, like have a way to just highlight people that are asking questions, which I thought would be a good way to get the bots out, but, you know, doing it this way isn't bad either, you know, just requiring like people to be subscribed. There's a new Red Sonja book about to come out called Unbreakable Red Sonja. Yeah, the artwork on that one looked pretty cool too. Liking the mustache look, no joke. I just did that this week for fun. I've been growing out my beard and mustache, and then I decided that I didn't really like it that long. And I just, like, I do still have my beard, but, like, I trimmed it like I normally do, like, really tight. It's more just, like, almost, like, thick stubble throughout. But I didn't shave like this, so it looks like I've got a mustache. I don't know. It just was fun for me. Just was fun. But yeah, speaking of like Dynamite, like if this drawing that I'm working on right now, like, and I'm going really slow so that I don't mess it up, if it goes well enough, it would be a variant cover. But like it has to be good, you know, it has to like be good enough for them. But we've talked, and we might do a variant cover, like a Comic Tropes variant cover. So that would be fun. That would be fun. Let's see. I think that was all the news I had, actually. Let me double check. Yeah, it was. What else did I have to talk about? I felt like there was something else that I wanted to talk about, but it's not coming to me. If it's important, it'll come back. But so bear with me. I'm thinking. Feel free to ask any questions that y'all might have. Maybe it'll spur my old man memory. It wasn't comic book news. How are you feeling about this artwork? Maybe good enough. There's a lot to go. You know, I have to give it a background. There's some other characters and stuff. I have to like finish with like the details and spot the blacks right. Maybe. I love how fast an artist like Daniel Warren Johnson works. If you've ever watched any of his live streams, he does a Friday show called Fridays with D-Dubs, and he works so fast and confidently and talks about his artistic choices. I am not capable of going that fast, and that's probably more than anything the reason I'm not like a professional comic book artist. I don't think I'm very fast. I'm not as confident with my choices. I wish I was, but I love drawing. It's a lot of fun. So, you know, I do these and just hope to sort of learn and get better. I think drawing's very fun. What are your thoughts about Vanish, the new Donny Cates and Ryan Stegman book? I think it's really cool that they're doing a creator-owned book. I don't know the exact premise. I don't remember it off the top of my head. But yeah, I'll probably check it out. They did a good job together on Venom. They really did. I know this is random, and I already said this, but do you think Homelander was that kid in the bathroom from your poop story? Yes, probably. Probably. Look, that was the story I told last week. I think we can all agree that ruined somebody's life. And I don't feel proud of that. But it's kind of funny. Let's see. Akito Yoshitomi is incredibly fast and clean. If everybody compared themselves to people like that, they might never draw. Well, sure. Kung Fu Hustle or Shaolin Soccer? Shaolin Soccer. We should go to another drink and draw thing again sometime. I'd love to do that, Chrissy. I'd love to do that. Yeah, because you're right. Like, there's no way of getting better at drawing than, like, just forcing yourself to do, like, timed drawings and sort of compete with other people, see what they're doing, and really push yourself. That's a great idea, Chrissy. We should definitely find something like that. And who knows, maybe we can now that I have, like, Fridays off of, like, my job. Oh, Rick and Morty. I missed out on that when it first came out because it looked ugly. Then I saw Rick Potion number 9 and I was hooked. I've seen every episode. Why are you starting it now? Oh, I don't know who was starting it now, but yeah. And if you like that, trust me, Justin Roiland has some other amazing cartoons on YouTube, like House of Cosby's and The New Adventures of Doc and Marty. All sorts of great things. The Unmentionables. Jim Mahfood needs to make more Skull Funk Radio. Such a God radio mixtape. You only work 4 days now? Yeah, I work 4 days at my sort of job, and that means that I have to produce comic tropes within like 3.5 days, which is doable. Obviously, like, I spend a portion of Mondays doing this as well. But this is important to me. This is my way of sort of relaxing and setting aside some time to draw and to talk to people about comics. So I see an advantage to this, even if it's like, not time spent on working something that's, monetized the same way as what Comic Tropes is. There's super chats, which helps a little bit, but, obviously I could make a lot more money doing just Comic Tropes fully edited videos or working at my job and selling a car, but this is important to me. I really enjoy, it's good for my mental health to spend some time just chatting with people, talking about comics and stuff. It keeps me feeling like grounded and connected and stuff like that. It means a lot to me. I really enjoy these. I personally really look forward to my Mondays these days. Shaolin Soccer is sports manga brought to life, though I recall Stephen Chow wanting to do a Captain Tsubasa film. That sounds a little familiar, but I don't remember the full details of it at all. Sorry, I got a little quiet there. Let's see. We are better for it, Chris. Much appreciated. Oh, nice to have you here. I appreciate you guys, too. Mondays you have off. Yeah, I get to set my own schedule. That is one nice thing. Like, I sell cars, okay? I do well enough doing that when you hit certain metrics, you get into what's called President's Club. It means you earn a little bit more for your sales, and you have to keep requalifying consistently. But it also means that I get to make my own schedule. So I make my schedule, it's consistent, and it gives me the time that I need to keep Comic Tropes going. Could you add a join button to the pros and cons channel? Possibly. I got to look into that. I think you might need more subscribers to get to the join level. I got to double check on that. Andrew Jefferson says, having a debate with a friend, Squirrel Girl versus Godzilla. The Squirrel Girl would win. I don't know how, but she would win. I'd want Godzilla to win, but Squirrel Girl would win. I look forward to Mondays as well. Yeah, trust me, I wish I could do this at a time that was even more convenient for everybody, but this is sort of the only time I can fit it into my schedule. But I'm glad that I can do it. It means a lot to me. It helps my sanity to know, okay, I'm going to have some time. And it also, means if I do this show that I sort of allow myself to have a certain portion of the day where I sit down and read new comics. Because if I didn't do this show, trust me, I'd just be grinding away at comic tropes, only doing research. I wouldn't be like reading comics for potential fun. And when I read these things, I'm like, okay, this is okay. This was a surprise how much I liked it, but I might not have made the time to read this if I didn't have this show. Finding Punisher, I wouldn't have expected to like Punisher. I definitely wouldn't have tried Eve of Judgment, and I didn't love that, but hey, I wouldn't have even had time to try it, and I still had fun reading that book because I like comics so much. Mandela Butterfly with a super chat saying, have you seen Solar Opposites? No, whatever channel it's on. I don't have regular cable. I just have a few streaming services, so I haven't seen Solar Opposites. I really would like to because, I like Justin quite a bit. I find his sense of humor very funny usually. So I would like to see it, but no, I haven't. I don't know what... It's not on any of the streaming services that I have. It must be on Hulu now that I think of it. It must be, because I don't have Hulu. I probably should, but you can only have so many. Everybody just said it too. Yeah, it's on Hulu. It's a Hulu original. I didn't know that. I don't have Hulu. I have HBO, Netflix, Disney Plus, Marvel and stuff like that. And Chris got me Paramount Plus, which I'm really grateful for because that new Star Trek show, Strange New Worlds, was like the best Star Trek. It became my favorite Star Trek, period. So good. Hold on, I'm getting a text. My sister said, I gave you my Hulu password. You did, Jeanty, but it's, you don't have the paid version, so, there's all the ads and stuff, and I just, And, it won't play certain things. But maybe I'll try it. I'll just deal with the commercials. My sister found a way to let me try it. We'll try. We'll try it. What else? Chris, I finished my comic book script, The Fake Horse. Got it proofread, sent a copy in to copyright, and printed a copy for myself to adapt. 10 years in the making. Wow, that's a long time. Keep moving forward. I thought Disney Plus came with Hulu. No, there's a package that you can get with Disney Plus, ESPN Plus, and Hulu, but I have just Disney Plus. Sorry, Fancy Pants. I know. I'm a bad brother, aren't I? I don't want commercials if I'm paying for something. Isn't that awful? Ain't I a stinker? Oh, you know what else was on Paramount Plus recently that surprised me with how good it was? They have a new Beavis and Butthead movie. I started watching it just not expecting anything, but I was laughing so hard at that. Yeah, if you have Paramount Plus by any chance, I totally recommend it. It's really, really funny. It's very good. Since we're talking about it, what is of the streaming services out there, which is your personal favorite? Which is the one you use the most? Watch Hulu on Brave web browser, no ads, life hack. Well, I don't know if I want to cheat like that, but thank you for thinking of me. How do you like the Strange New Worlds finale? Loved it, Meow Nian. Loved it. So cool. It made me go back and rewatch the original series episode. What was it? Balance of Terror, I think it was called. It was amazing to compare those two. Yeah. If you've never seen Star Trek before, try Strange New Worlds. You don't need to watch any other Star Trek to get it. It's its own thing. But if you've watched other Star Trek, I think that there's a good chance you may agree it's potentially like the best Star Trek has ever been. Okay, Disney Plus, HBO Max, Disney Plus, HBO Max, HBO Max, HBO Max, HBO Max, Prime Video. Interesting, Chrissy. Disney Plus. I hate streaming services. Prefer YouTube. Yeah, you can buy most things through YouTube. SwearNet. I don't know that one. Disney Plus, Amazon Music, HBO Max for the content. Yeah, the user interface, I agree, Tyler, is not good on HBO Max. Totally agree. But really my fave is YouTube Premium. Yeah, YouTube I watch the most, probably. I do watch YouTube more than any other streaming service. Probably Netflix and Disney Plus. Need to see more HBO Max. So even if you pay for Hulu, you still get ads? There's tiers, Adrian. There's 2 tiers. Yeah. Crunchyroll. Prime Video or Disney Plus number 2. Yeah, I'm trying to think of like what is my favorite. Like I watch YouTube the most. HBO and Disney I think have like the best original content. But Netflix I keep getting close to like being like, well, it's time to cancel. And then they'll be like Stranger Things, right? And I'm like, okay, I like Stranger Things. Let me watch that. And I'm like, oh God. Stranger Things this year was so damn good. And then I think about like, oh, well, I don't watch Prime Video. And then I'm like, well, wait a minute. No, The Boys and Invincible. So every one of them, like, I wish there was a way to pick and just choose the shows and it wasn't that expensive. Because, yeah, you can get it on like iTunes or YouTube, like an individual show. But it's just too expensive that way. I don't know. There needs to be a better system, though. There's just too many services. And each of them only have like 1 or 2 great shows, but those shows are really great. Thanks for sharing your opinions, though. That's really interesting to hear what other people are into these days. YouTube Premium has been the best bang for my buck. Yeah, we have YouTube Premium, and it is nice not to have the ads and to be able to, like, say, like, place a song or a podcast on YouTube, and, like, you know, I can shut that down, or I can, like, multitask by using another app, and it'll still play. That's really nice. I don't know the show Undone on Amazon Prime, no. I miss Liquid TV, MTV. Yeah... That was pretty cool, wasn't it? That was pretty cool. Like, it was experimental and stuff. Loved your Mike Allred video. Thank you. You know what was cool about that? Mike himself, like, replied and had some kind words to say. So that was really, really unexpected and you know, just nice. I can't make the episodes where I talk about a creator's history and think about how would they react, because that would freeze me in terror. Like about, like, you know, offending someone or getting something like wrong. All I can do is like the best for the for like what I consider the audience, and then for myself as well. But when a creator that I've like discussed says that they saw it and they liked it, it's a good feeling. It really is. But I can't let myself think about that when I'm actually making the episode. It just, no, that would freeze me. Freeze me in terror. Live stream on Adult Swim might be best streaming service. I hate that streaming is becoming like a more expensive version of cable, right? It was simpler when there was only a couple of them. But just keeps growing. I don't know. You know, basically for me, whichever streaming service gets Jared Leto to do a TV show version of Morbius is going to, of course, have all my money. Because as much Morbius as I can get, that's what's most important to me. That's what's most important. Severance on Apple TV Plus is really incredible. I've heard that Severance is really good. I don't have Apple TV Plus, and I've also heard Ted Lasso is great. So if I was going to get another streaming service, even for like a little while, the one I would next get would be Apple Plus, just to check out those two shows, Ted Lasso and Severance. I've heard really good things about that. Well, you guys have given me stuff to think about for both dinner and streaming services, so thank you. Thank you, thank you. Is there any comics that you've worked on? Yeah, definitely. I wouldn't call this like, impressive or anything, but I proofread all of Robert Kirkman's books ever since the days of Battle Pope. So, the entire run of Invincible and Walking Dead, I would proofread those. I've done a lot of like, self-published sort of indie books, but it's been a while since I made those, but I made a lot. And then I've illustrated stories in some educational comics, like Colonial Comics Volume 1 and 2, a book called Trickster that was written by Native Americans about their tribe's version of the Trickster legend. So yeah, I've worked on a few things here and there. Trickster was nominated for an Eisner, so that felt good. Suicide Squad won an Oscar, so you never know. There you go. How many Oscars will it pick up? I would predict Morbius will probably win somewhere between 20 and 30 Oscars. However many categories it's eligible for, I would assume it's going to sweep. Just like looking at the future, the only downside to Morbius is that like probably all we're going to see in the future is Morbius sequels and Morbius spin-offs and Morbius clones for the next several decades. But how can that be a bad thing if you get more Morbius? So, that's just the way the world is definitely going to go, no question. That's my educated opinion. I hope that's helpful. Some Grammys too, yeah. And then it'll go into like, plays, so it'll pick up some Tonys, I assume. Some Grammys, some Tonys. There'll be some TV documentaries about it that win some Emmys. So pretty soon, like, Morbius will be known as an EGOT. Emmy, Grammy, Oscar, Tony. That's just being realistic. Like, Morbius is definitely, like, we are soon going to look at our lives as, like, PM and AM, as in pre-Morbius and after Morbius, because of like, in my lifetime, the thing that like has changed the most is the addition of the internet. But I think now it's really going to be more like, where were you when Morbius came out? People are going to be like 9/11, yeah, that changed a few things, but really, I remember where I was when I heard Morbius was going to be made. Or, hey, I remember my personal experience going to the movie theater and learning Morb trivia. It's definitely going to change all of our lives for the better. Chris, that's pretty awesome. Must feel great working on an Eisner-worthy book. It's a good feeling. Absolutely it is. You're right. Yeah, I'm proud of that book. I'm very proud of it. I mean, I only did one story in it, just to be clear, but I'm glad that I got to work on it. It means a lot. So sometimes I get like hater comments on you. Sometimes, every week I get some hateful comments on YouTube, and sometimes they're like, "You talk about comics and review them, but if you knew anything, like you'd try to make a comic." And I'm like, I did get nominated for an Eisner. Technically, it's not like I know nothing, but yeah, that doesn't really shut anybody up because I'm not a superstar, and that's okay. Don't need to be. Cowabunga. Jim Rugg had a Blacklight comic. That's kind of close. Yeah. Octobriana is a really cool book. It's just another vampire movie. Nothing revolutionary. You must not be talking about Morbius, because obviously Morbius changed the game for how films could be made in terms of like showing like, hey, here's what a perfect movie would look like. And everybody can go, oh, okay, now I know. Now I understand. Like, if I were to make a perfect movie, it would be Morbius. And now I get it. Yeah, I think that like what's sad is just thinking that like somebody like Stanley Kubrick is no longer with us, because think of how many good Morbius movies he could have given us, like if he'd only known what you could do with film properly, because he was talented. He just isn't like, he didn't come up with Morbius. Good evening, folks. Hope you all are having a nice time. We're having a great time. We're probably about to like wrap it up, because now I just realized I've hit 2 hours. I've read all the news. I've given you all the reviews. I don't think I have anything left to talk about, really. I'm just wasting everybody's time at this point. Wasting time. I don't know who sang that one. I think it's 90s, though. Super chat from something called Comic Nerd Press, but no comment. Well, thank you just for the support. That's super sweet of you. I hope there's such a thing as karma, and that it comes around to you. Thank you. Thanks for the niceness. A Clockwork Morb. I hear there's a Morbius cameo in Avatar 2. I'm pretty sure that James Cameron just changed everything like halfway through filming to include more Morbius. That it's like about 70% Morbius now. Thank you. Time to eat a boomerang chicken and a mushroom pie. I don't know what a boomerang chicken is, I have to admit. You mentioned that earlier, but I don't know what that is. But I hope it comes back to you in the best way possible. Is Marvel going to change MCU now that everyone knows it as the Morbius Cinematic Universe? They're going to have to. Who needs RoboCop? We got Morbocop. Has Jared Leto ever made a good movie? Yeah. But he hasn't been the star. Fight Club. He was in Fight Club. That's a pretty cool movie. Maybe it's a little dated now, but I remember liking that one a lot. What else was he in? Dallas Buyers Club. Basically, all the club movies. Can you do an episode on comic inking changing through the decades? I'd like to do something like that very, very much. Obviously very research heavy. So, not in the immediate future, but I have always wanted to do something talking about like inking, why it exists, how it's changed. I have always wanted to do that. So hopefully at some point I could do something like that. That would be that would really be cool. Is there a 3D lenticular comic? There's 3D lenticular covers. I don't think that there's ever been a full comic like that. Hey, kitty. My cat, Little Bean, is back there. I don't know if he's going to come see us or not, but if he does, I'll introduce you all. He's great. He's my buddy. Whoa! Look at this, folks. Look at this. Jojo says, thanks for all the videos. I'm getting back into drawing but stink at drawing hair. You have any... What? You retracted it. Jojo, I wanted to read your comment. You gave such a nice super chat. I think you were asking, like, if you have any good advice for hair inking techniques. I think it's something I'm still working on. I like drawing hair, but it's something I'm still working on to make it look like, you know, real. Two things I can think of. One, draw them as like clumps of strands. Two, study lighting, because that's what I'm always sort of like wondering if I'm doing right. I gotta look at, like, you know, where would the highlights actually fall, and I think I do too many of them personally. Because they're fun, but that's not necessarily what gives you the most accurate and best looking picture. So if that was your question, those are my 2 cents on it. Either way, thank you for the super chat. I was worried Jojo was trying to get the money back. I don't think that they let you do that. Interview a comic artist in the indie realm you enjoy to help promote their stuff and let folks know why they're awesome. You know, I mean, I've tried to do that here and there. So yeah. The thing is this. I can't make my show nothing but interviews promoting people because honestly, it does not get much traction, okay? So, if I did that, the channel like literally withers and dies. YouTube stops promoting it because not as many people watch it. So I have to pick and choose when I do an interview because it interests me and I think it's worth doing. I wish I could do more, but it's tough. Who's been my favorite interview so far? I would say interviewing Stan Lee was kind of important. You know, like that felt good. That felt interesting. I felt like I challenged him a little too, instead of just being a fanboy or something. That one meant a lot. It also meant a lot to interview Larry Hama recently because that's somebody I grew up like really admiring his work. And so yeah, you know, like the chance to sort of talk to your heroes essentially. How do you draw Morbius hair? Perfectly, or don't bother at all. Why doesn't Disney Marvel make an Indiana Jones comic? Well, they have. Oh, thank you for the super chat again, Comic Nerd Press. That's very kind of you. I really appreciate that. Thank you. Wow. You guys have been generous tonight, and thank you. That means a lot. Heister here with a super chat and asks a question. Or no, just says something. Thank you for all your videos. You've inspired me to get back into drawing also. I love hearing that, folks. Anytime like you want to say that something I've done has helped you either want to draw or want to read more comics, that's my whole goal here, is just to get people excited and interested and invested in comics and drawing sequential art, because I think it's the coolest medium that's out there. I think it's so versatile. You can tell any kind of story. You can do so much with it and really reach new people. It's beautiful. You should do an interview with Eric Larson, Eric Powell, or Matt Wagner. That would be interesting to talk to any one of them. I've met Eric Larson and Eric Powell. Great people. Maybe I will. Do I have a P.O. box? Not yet. I think I'll get one. They're kind of expensive in a way. So, and plus it's like, you know, like, do I want to just get stuff? You know, I feel like I don't need more stuff in my life. But I think I will get one because I do get a lot of people that want to send me their indie comic, and I'm not going to make a full comic tropes episode about it, but I could at least mention it briefly here on a show like this, and that is, if you wanted to like put it out there in the world, yeah, I'm happy to sort of like quickly highlight that and share it with the world. I would like to be able to do stuff like that if that's what people want to send me. So we'll see. I think that there's a good chance I will get one, and I'll just have to, justify the expense that, it's part of connecting with the community and such, which is fine. Can you tease us the topic for the upcoming Comic Tropes video? I can tease it because I don't think many people would know the guy that I'm going to talk about. All I'll say is that this was a guy who... I'm going to talk about a guy who was an artist and a publisher in the industry. He got into like literal fist fights with people. He would carry guns into work. Just a total wild man. Did a lot of crazy books and magazines in his time. And I think has therefore a pretty chaotic but entertaining life to discuss. I think it'll be a pretty cool episode, and I'm really excited to make it. So yeah, all I can say is it'll be a banger. I think people will like it. Steve Sorensen says, Comic Troopers Fantasy Football League, yay or nay? I like the idea of fantasy football. I like football. I've got a couple friends that do it every year, and they always invite me, and I've always declined because I know that if I did it, if I joined a fantasy football league, I would be watching every game so intently, and I just don't want to commit like that. I want to enjoy football a little more casually than that, but if I had sort of anything on the line, I know I would be watching like every single game, and I just don't want to commit that kind of time in my life to one more thing. So I've always sort of declined. Also, I once had some pretty good luck monetarily in football. I started a job, this was a long time ago, and the job had an office betting pool for every year. And what that was it was a pick'em league. So you could choose one team every week that would just win a game. You start with like 32 teams, but once you've used a team, you can't use it again. So the first few weeks aren't too hard, but it gets very tricky as you go on, and you've used up sort of the good teams or the ones that are like most likely to win. But I took that down to the end. When you get down to like 10 people and then 4 people and then 2 people, everybody's like, let's just split the pot. Let's just split the pot. And I kept saying no, and I kept going for it. And I won. I was the single winner, and I won $4,000. And after that, I was sort of like, you know what? What are realistically the odds that I'm ever going to win another big pot in football? I feel like the odds aren't in my favor. So I've never really wagered on football ever since. I got my one big win, and I decided I'm gonna let that ride. I'm done. I did it. That's my rationale. Just playing the odds. You inspired me. I think I want to start making comic book videos of my own, and I would like to do the history of Latino comics. I feel they don't get talked about as much. I definitely agree. I have covered some comics from Mexico and Argentina, but obviously that's just like a drop in the bucket of what I do, and I would like to do more. There are a couple Argentinian artists I'd like to cover a little bit more. So we'll see. But I encourage you, do that. That's a niche that hasn't been filled. Go for it. If you're passionate about it, and you think you can stay passionate about it, then you're likely to make a good show. That's the best advice I can have if you guys are creating anything, whether it's like a YouTube video or a TikTok video or a Vine video or a Vimeo. No, if you're creating, honestly, anything, if you're writing something, if you're drawing something, if you're baking something, don't try to follow any trends that you think could take off, because that stuff can change on a dime. You just don't know. Make sure that you're doing something that you are personally passionate about. It's the only way that you're going to stay invested and do a good job. And if you are interested, there's an excellent chance there are other people out there that have the same opinion and like passion. That's my only advice for creating anything, is don't try to chase any sort of a trend. Always do it for yourself first. That way, even if it doesn't do well, at least you had fun making it. At least you didn't feel like you wasted your time. Whereas if you're like, I don't love talking about hip-hop, but like right now, that's like the biggest thing, so I'm going to, make some videos about the history of like hip-hop or something. Well, if you're not going to have a good time, it's not going to come out too well, and it might just not hit, and then you'll feel like you really wasted your time. I hope that makes sense. What are your thoughts on Freakazoid ripping off Madman? I guess I don't know that piece of history too well. I've heard that, but I don't know too. I never saw the show, so I don't know it too well. I don't really know anything about it, to be honest. I'd have to read up on that. If it's true, that's pretty crappy. Twitter bought Vine and killed it before TikTok was created. I know, I was just listing things. The Mexican Spidey Comics video was awesome. I'm Mexican and I enjoyed it very much and learned from it. It was interesting, wasn't it, that like they got the rights from Marvel directly to make their own original Spider-Man stories, and it just sort of had to fit in between the other stories. Marvel should really find out how to reprint those. I think a lot of people would find that very interesting. And who doesn't want, like, big butt Gwen Stacy? Makes everybody happy. They really drew a bootylicious version of Gwen Stacy in those books. It's wild. I was proud of that, because that took me some time to translate them and stuff, but I think I did an okay job. What's the most enjoyable Mike Allred book? Well, I'm biased. I'd probably say Madman, but I also love X-Force/Ecstatic/The Excellent. Anything he's done with, Superman has been awesome. So I'm really looking forward to his upcoming book. Yeah, I don't know. All sorts of stuff. Yeah, kind of like Bat manga. Kind of like that. Well, I think I'm going to call it a show. Let's see. Allred makes characters and comics with sensitivity, right? Flaws that we forgive? I think that's a fair statement. Yeah. Is the new Comic Tropes episode on Malcolm Wheeler Nicholson? No. Interesting person, but no. No, this is a little more obscure. That's why I think it'll do well. I think it'll be interesting to people, because I don't think anybody else has covered this, really. I couldn't really find any other videos about it, so. I'm always trying to, find some topics that no other comic tubers are covering. That's not always possible, Like, if I'm going to cover Mike Allred or Kingdom Come, a lot of people have done it. But, if I can find a Silver Age Adams story, like this past week's Comic Tropes, where, he's fighting a gang that literally just, their gimmicks are throwing cheese and throwing wigs. Nobody else has done that. That's fun. That's fun to find. Well, I think that this one's definitely coming out better than my first attempt at things from last week. So I'm happy about that. I'm gonna call it an episode now, but I'm glad you all were here to join me on this. Because you know what, I needed a good day today. I won't go into any details on names, but like I had a customer from my job call me today. It wasn't even a customer technically. It was a family member of the customer, and was like all mad at me because they found a vehicle history report from a company that like is different than the one that we use, that showed that it had some small damage in the past. And I'm like, okay, you know, all I can tell you is, like, I didn't see it on the vehicle history report that I have access to, and I know that my mechanics check stuff, and we don't sell any vehicles with frame damage. That's an instant knockout for us. And you can return a car. You can, like, we'll give you all your money back, every single penny. You can return it within 30 days. It had been, like, 8 or 9. I'm like, well, I'm happy to take the money back. But this family member was just like, you're a liar, and I want $6,000 back now. And I'm like, I can't do that. I don't have you can return it. If you don't want it, you can return it. But she was just screaming at me. And that was like the first thing. I wasn't even out of bed. I was still in bed, and I'm just like getting yelled at by this person that I don't even know. I'm like, what a crummy way to start my day. But it's ended lovely thanks to all of you. You guys have given me a fantastic evening. But I still need to obviously like flesh out some shadows to like really give this, like, obviously this is like lots of shadow and stuff, and then this body here has none. It looks weird. It doesn't look right. I need to even that all out and place the shadows in the appropriate places, but I'm going to, and I think that this looks better than like my first draft. That's an interesting idea, but that's not as good as like where this is going. Like I think I just needed another shot to try to like get that going. Just finished the second volume of Love and Rockets. Oh man, that's awesome. Love and Rockets. What, I'd say these days that is an underrated book. Not enough people read Love and Rockets. Such an incredible comic. So good. Hopefully you loved it too. Oh, tell you what, I have one last thing I can do. You Googled Mexican Gwen Stacy? Well, watch my video on comic tropes. Mexican Spider-Man. Sorprendente el hombre aracne. I can't remember exactly how to pronounce it. I have a blind bag that's sort of comics related that I can open to close this out, okay? A My Hero Academia little statue. Let's see who I got. Okay? I like My Hero Academia. Let's see. I got Uraraka! Uraraka, everybody. Her power is she can, like, reduce the gravity and make things float. She can make herself float, too, but it tends to give her motion sickness, so she has to get better at it. Yeah. Look at that. And it comes with, like, a little stand here so that I can... How do I do that? Like that. So if I've got her on the stand, she can sort of be floating, essentially. I don't know how well you can see any of that, but it's actually really well detailed. I like that. I like My Hero Academia. That has some really nice work on the hair and everything. Sorprendente hombre araña. She's also a favorite on the internet. Is she? I guess I don't know. Yeah. Alright. Uraraka. That's a good one. I don't have Midoriya or Bakugo. Those would be cool. Or Todoroki would be cool. We'll see. There we go. Alright. Uraraka, you watch out over my drawing until I have time to work on it again. Maybe I'll work on this next week some more, or maybe I'll come up with something new. You guys tell me in the comments if you're watching this not live. Should I finish this drawing live, or would you like me to just start something new and cool? Up to you. I'll see what the comments are. Anyway, I'm going to take off, folks. You've made tonight a fantastic one. Did an extra half hour because I was having such a good time with y'all. Take care. Keep reading comics.